The PC gave us computing power at home, the internet connected us, and mobile let us do it pretty much anywhere. Now generative AI lets us communicate with technology in our own language using our own senses. But figuring it all out when you're living through it is a totally different story. Welcome to Leading the Shift, a new podcast from Microsoft Azure. I'm your host, Susan Ettlinger. In each episode, leaders will share what they're learning to help you navigate all this change with confidence. Please join us. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
You're listening to the Animation Addicts Podcast, episode 195. Klaus, One Small Act of Capitalism. Welcome to the Animation Addicts Podcast with the Rotoscopers, the number one place to get your animation fix with animation addicts just like you. Each episode, we dive into the wonderful world of animation featuring Disney, DreamWorks, Pixar, and everything in between. From hilarious discussions and movie reviews to interviews with industry insiders, this show's mission is to brighten your day through our love and appreciation of animation. So hop on your nerdy couch, grab some snacks, and get ready to hang out with your animation besties because it's time to dive into today's episode.
Welcome to the Animation Addicts Podcast. We are your hosts. My name is Chelsea Robson.
I'm Morgan Stradling.
And today we have a very, very special guest with us today, Andrew McPherson. How are you, Andrew?
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to be here.
Welcome, welcome.
Yeah, Andrew is actually one of our Diamond patrons, but not only that, he also has a podcast that I want you to introduce it for everybody.
Sure. Yeah, it's I'm one of the hosts of a podcast called Dadgum Nerds, which is basically about the intersection of dad life and nerd life. So, we talk about everything from, Star Wars, Harry Potter, and animation comes up all the time on it.
Because you're dads.
Because we are dads, though, really, that's kind of the most important thing, being husbands and fathers first and foremost. So we kind of come at it from that. But right now, that means in our stages of life, that means a lot of poop stories.
Okay.
So we are laughing all the time and just having a blast. So yeah, feel free to check us out. We're on all major podcast platforms, Dadgum Nerds.
Awesome. Yeah, no, we are really excited. So how did you find the Rotoscopers?
Actually, one of the other hosts on the show sent it to me. And once I quickly found out about it, I'm like, how was this not in my life previously?
People like us.
I love it. I was so happy to see, somebody who loves animation just as much as I do. I actually went to school for animation, so it just made it doubly fun.
Really? So for to be an animator, or
I initially had my sights set on Disney and Pixar at the beginning, but ultimately decided that family was more important because you have to work very long shifts when you're animating at that level. And have been doing a senior animator at a production company here in Georgia, and have been doing that for about 15 years as basically an animator, a video editor, a motion graphics designer, and having a blast.
Very cool. Exciting. So you are in the industry, you know what you're talking about. And so that will be very, very helpful because this film that we are reviewing today is cutting edge animation, definitely has redefined what we can expect from animated films going forward. And so today's episode is Klaus.
Yes.
We all need a new Christmas movie in our life too. Like a standard one.
Do we?
A standard one. Not like just like, the random Hallmark, which I'm not opposed to, just, but the ones that like
they bust those out like no one's business and they're not great.
That I can watch, like replay value though, is like replay value on this was very good. So,
but before we get into that, we have something very exciting that we do with all of our guests. It's a little segment called Catchin' Fire.
Dun, dun, dun.
How excited are you for this part, Andrew?
I'm going to say 52 out of 52.
Yeah. He's a listener.
I'm glad I just made your day, Chelsea.
So with that, how familiar are you with the Swan Princess?
So that was actually one that we rented from Movie Gallery way back in the day. And we had that on almost repeat. My sister was an absolute fan of it at the time.
The sisters, they do that.
They do that, but it's a solid film, and
Nice.
all kinds of fun.
Okay. So that joke does not go over your head at all.
Oh no, not at all.
Excellent. So we're in good company, guys. This is going to be a good episode. But Chelsea, take it away.
Well then, how about a quick round of catch and fire?
Catch and fire? You mean me?
You're the only one with enough courage.
Here we go. All right, what was the very first animated film you remember seeing?
Bug's Life.
What is your favorite cartoon growing up?
Magic School Bus.
What was your favorite animated movie?
Wall-E.
Who's your favorite animator or artist?
Frank Thomas or Ollie Johnston.
Classic animation or CGI?
Oh, they both have their place, but classic, near and dear to my heart.
Disney or Pixar?
Disney's been killing it lately. My boy Pixar's been falling behind lately, in my opinion. So Disney.
Laika or Studio Ghibli?
Don't make me pick. Ghibli.
Your favorite animated studio?
There's an Irish one called Cartoon Saloon that did The Secret of excuse me. Yeah, The Secret of Kells and Song of the Sea. Those guys are one of my favorites.
Oh, I'm so glad to have other people pop up. Good job. Songs or no songs?
Oh, it depends. More of a no song person.
We can still be friends. It's fine.
I know you guys are like super musical. Believe me, it has its place.
Disneyland or Disney World?
World.
People or anthropomorphic?
Oh gosh, you guys are just
Hitting it where it hurts.
anthropomorphic.
Favorite animated dog?
Doug.
Heroes or villains?
Oh, absolutely, heroes all the way.
Huey, Dewey, or Louie?
Donald. Let Dewey, sure.
Tiana or Mulan?
Oh, Milan.
Stitch or Tinkerbell?
Stitch, please.
Frozone or Elsa?
Frozone.
All
Where's
right.
my super suit?
And here is the all-important question, which I'm sure that you are ready to answer. Which would you rather watch? Cinderella 2 or Return of Jafar?
Why? Purely for Jafar, we'll go Return of Jafar. Purely because I'd love seeing him again.
Congratulations,
Woo!
Andrew. You have passed Catch and Fire.
I would say that's at least a 48 out of 52.
Oh, no, you totally got 52 out
Okay,
of 52.
cool.
52 out of 52. Well done.
All right. And with that, we are going to jump into our main discussion. We have no time to lose because we have a lot to talk about for Klaus.
Halliday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Halliday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Halliday. Halliday, bring it on.
Today, the beverage aisle looks a lot different than it used to. America's beverage companies are working together. We're delivering the options everyone wants. In fact, nearly 60% of beverages Americans buy have zero sugar. You'll find more variety than ever, including more of your favorites, now available with zero sugar. You'll also find more sizes and clear calorie information on the front of every can, bottle, and pack. We know when it comes to finding balance, the more choices, the better.
Hello? Jesper Johansson, postman. Mr. Klaus.
You have a gift. You were meant for making toys. So I figured if you donate your old toys, I'll deliver them for free.
Tonight, I go with you.
There's no need for you to come with me, really. Tonight, then.
Our cousin told us if we write a letter to Mr. Klaus, he'll make us a toy. Dear Mr. Klaus. Dear Mr. Klaus.
Shall we then?
Yep.
Mr. Klaus is the coolest.
Klaus? What about me? Ow! What the loser? Oh yeah, well if I'm a loser, then you're too far. You're gone.
Hey, what do you guys think you're doing? This is Smearensburg, the unhappiest place on Earth. And you two can't change that.
The postman and toy maker are brainwashing everyone!
We need to show people that a true, selfless act always sparks another.
Hi! What's happening right now? Oh no.
Holy mother!
What happened?
Not a word. You just sit there. Be all magical and awesome.
Jasper, we're doing it. Let's go. Oh, oh, oh.
Wait. Time out. Really? That's how you laugh? Come on, we're running out of time. Those kids are counting on us.
If we don't stop them tonight, this town will never be the same!
Destroy those toys!
No! Ha! Eat our snow, you... They're not attached. Why aren't they attached? I thought they were attached. I would never, in a million years, have done what I just did if I didn't think these were attached.
All right, so Klaus, let's talk about it, everybody. But before we do, let me just set the stage for you. The studio was Sergio Pablos Animation Studios, also known as SPA Studios. Also had some help from Netflix Animation and A3 Media Cine. Directors were Sergio Pablos, release date November 8th, 2019, and the budget was $40 million. And we do not have a box office for this because it was not technically released theatrically, obviously, since it's a Netflix release and exclusive. They did release it in theaters for a very, very, very limited time, just so that way it could get that Oscar nomination and be able to be eligible for that. But other than that, we don't have box office numbers. But I will say, I did see that Netflix did report that within the first 4 weeks, 40 million members had watched the film. So that nonetheless, that's a lot of people. That's just 40 accounts, right? Not necessarily people. So this was definitely something that got a lot of buzz when it first came out back last year. And then also even when it was initially announced, the teaser trailer. I remember the teaser trailer in 2015. People were just blown away with this, and they had kind of a teaser trailer, and it was because they were trying to get funding, and they needed a studio or distribution company to help fund them. And so, people thought this was a CGI film because it's just so beautiful and it's so unexpected. And that's something, I guess, the elephant in the room is that this is a traditionally animated film,
which is amazing.
That blew me away. The whole time I was watching the film, I couldn't figure out whether it was 2D or 3D.
Yeah. Well, and then there's like one part where the camera swoops in as he's going across the big tundra, and like he's for the first time going to visit Klaus. And I'm wondering, okay, how much of this, like where it seems so seamless. How are they doing this? What is this sorcery?
I am told that there were elements in this that were 3D animated. And for example, the chase scene at the very end had 2D and 3D that were popping in and out quite constantly.
Which seems very standard for later Renaissance, like Disney type production. But I think that the fact, just the whole style of this film was so different and so beautiful that it just took everybody by surprise, especially when that first trailer came out. Everyone was like, whoa.
Yeah, this film for me was very unexpected, and it's unexpectedly charming. And what I love about this film, we talked about the animation style. They didn't want to just bring back traditional animation. Reading some interviews with the directors, which I will include in the show notes, or the director, he was saying that he wanted to push traditional animation forward. I think when we talk about traditional animation, there's so much nostalgia attached to it because of Disney and the great films that were produced and all the films that we love, and just that style. As simple as it is, it's so charming. And he did not want to go take a step back. Why would you? We need to move the medium forward. It doesn't have to be thrown away. Even though computer animation is all the rage, doesn't mean those principles of 2D animation have to be completely lost, which the major studios basically have just abandoned 2D, and it seems like, okay, yeah, we're evolving. And so when things evolve, things die. But with this, we see that's not true at all. And I'm really, really just blown away and excited that this film came to be, because it really allows us to see what is possible and that there can be more of this. And it is fantastic.
It's neat to see Netflix kind of putting their money where their mouth is too, because Klaus is really the second big animation project, 2D animation project that they've done. I don't know if you guys have seen or heard anything about the green eggs and ham thing that they did earlier. I put it on for my little 1-year-old son, and me and my wife were just blown away. Like, this is full feature length 2D animation. And that's basically been gone since 2008 in Princess and the Frog.
Yeah.
To see that again is to see Netflix being the pioneer for 2D animation. I couldn't be more excited.
Why do you think Netflix is taking these chances on these 2D animated films while everyone else is just not taking that? Is it because the big studios are not equipped anymore to really do this? And they've had the bombs like Winnie the Pooh, and I guess you could say Princess and the Frog. They didn't perform as well, and so they're not willing to put their money back where their mouth used to be, right? But Netflix seems to be a little bit more risk takers in this. And why do you think that is?
I'd imagine it's probably a good combination of the right project coming around at the right time with the right people at Netflix. Because that's a lot of what happened, say, at the Disney Renaissance, when 2D animation almost died a horrific death. I would be shocked if it wasn't just a bunch of open-minded people at Netflix who were probably fans at some point in time, and willing to see something like the little pitch that they did in 2015 that looked like a flippin' oil painting on every frame. To see something like that that's genuinely different and genuinely exciting, how can you not make some studio executive very excited about that?
Yeah, and Netflix does have its own Netflix animation department, which they are really going all in on this, not only for children's programming. I think we see quite a bit of new releases coming weekly from Netflix animation, but also they're not just limiting it to that. There's children programming, there's TV programs that are not designated for children, and now they have the movies. And so they're really spanning all aspects of animation and not limiting it just to what you would, bingeable content in the form of TV series, or just, what do you call them anymore? It's not on TV. It's on TV, but it's not on TV. I'm going to call it a TV series,
show.
Yeah, shows. And so, yeah, I get emails all the time from their PR group, just new thing coming out, new season, new this. And so, Over the Moon just came out, which was the new one for by Glenn Keane, which we definitely need to do. Netflix animation has really, and Netflix in general, has shown themselves to not just produce junk. It's not just a matter of, hey, we just need to get something out there so we can keep the subscribers and keep people coming. But it's, you're subscribing to Netflix and you're watching their Netflix produced films, animation or not, because they are quality. And that's it. That's impressive, considering they are having to basically move to be their own providers of content, as there was a period of time where everyone was going to Netflix and licensing their content out to Netflix so Netflix could have something to put on its streaming platform. But now everyone is scratching that back and taking that away and starting their own channels and their own streaming services, because they're realizing that's a lot of money in that. And so Netflix very smartly has realized this a few years ago and now is investing in its own original programming, which I think in a few years will be the primary content that we see on there. And if it's anything like what we've seen so far, the future is good.
Oh, yes.
It's also really exciting to have something outside of Disney Plus. Like, and I but I mean, not to say that I'm like I would as a consumer like to just have all the things in one place, but at the same time, I feel like I really like the idea of having not monopolies in the
Yeah.
world.
Competition
So
is good, and it
yeah.
drives artists to be better and studios to be better. So
Yeah.
yeah, if Disney and Netflix got into essentially an animation war,
We
viewers are
are
going
the
to be the
winning.
ones to win.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the director, Sergio Pablos. I think he has kind of an interesting career. This is the first production of his new studio. He started as a key animator on Once Upon a Forest. Ah, good times. Moved to A Goofy Movie, was basically at the studio for the Disney Renaissance through Treasure Planet. Then moved over to Stuart Little 3, Call of the Wild. Was an executive producer on Despicable Me, and then a few other things, most recently executive producer of Smallfoot. Yeah, and so then, he went off on his own and formed his own studio, which is very bold, I would say.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people end up doing that, but then a lot of times they stay small or they just don't get anywhere as far as getting the funding. But he had these credentials behind his name, especially being story and executive producer for Despicable Me, which we saw how that totally just exploded.
I have thoughts on that. Despicable Me. When I saw that he was attached to Despicable Me as a writer and executive producer, my respect dropped significantly. I know some people love Despicable Me, but I have words and soapboxes for it. However, I'm told that when he was a writer for it, he dropped out early on in the process. So he basically kind of started the direction for it and left even before the Minions were created.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay, that's interesting to know. So he's since 2015, really, he's been working on his own. He's had a few little credits here and there, but this has been his big thing. And, we've seen lots of other very famous animators who started their own things, and they have not really reached the level that he did so quickly with his very first production. He hit a home run. And I think that's just really fantastic. And it makes me really excited to see future things from Sergio.
Chelsea, I'm sorry if I kicked your dog with that comment on that. So
Chelsea is a Despicable Me super fan. That's,
I'm not.
If you enjoy Despicable Me, you have fun with it. There was something that Sergio Pablo said that just that ties to Despicable Me that I absolutely loved. When he said, when I have a project that I'm working on, I go into it and ask the question, what is the best medium for this story?
Mm-hmm.
And so when he brought Despicable Me to the table, obviously the best medium for that was 3D. And the people over at Illumination Entertainment obviously took the bare bones of that and turned it into Minions galore, and multiple dollars galore.
Whew, lots.
Many dollars.
See, and that's the main thing. And it's like for somebody to be like, I hate the Minions. It's like, I mean, there's a lot of people who don't.
And there are, and believe me, the Minions have their place. They really do. They are hysterical. But to see someone going into a project and asking what medium is the story to be told, and that's kind of where we get Klaus. Because I've always followed the Brad Bird philosophy on when it comes to animation, that animation is not a genre, it's a medium.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That it's not that it's a genre just for kids, that it's a genre that it's a medium where you can do horror animation, that you can do sci-fi animation, that you can do drama animation. So to see Sergio Pablos going in with a healthy respect for that, that's really neat to see. And I don't see that a lot these days.
Absolutely. So let's talk about Klaus. This is a Christmas story. It's basically an alternate origin story for Santa Claus. But this being a Christmas film, it doesn't feel like a Christmas film. And I thought that was very refreshing because it tells you all these elements about Santa Claus and how he got started. But at the same time, you don't see a lot of the very traditional Christmas elements. It doesn't have a Christmas feel like, I guess, some of these other Christmas films that you're so used to seeing that you watch all the time that have become classics or even not classics, maybe like all the ones that the Hallmark Channel pumps out every other week, it seems, where it's just loaded with Christmas cheer and Christmas trees and music and jingle bells. This is very, very different vibe, especially at the very beginning. And there really is only one Christmas song where they're briefly singing Silent Night. And then we do see Christmas trees, and then towards the end, it gets Christmassy. But I loved how this just wasn't, your typical Christmas film.
Yeah, it was the story that then at the end they're like, well, we can. How do I make my my final budget? Or like, how do I make my final year-end goal? Tied to Christmas. Yeah, let's do that.
Always a recipe for success.
I mean, this is definitely a Chelsea type of a comment, but like I really appreciated the fact that it's like capitalism is well and good in the society, and no, I'm serious though. Like the whole thing they're talking about how the main theme seems to be like a simple act of kindness inspires another, and I completely agree. But I also appreciate the fact that they like showed that based on what I can tell, it doesn't look like this post service is a government run thing. It seems as though it's just him.
Very privatized, yes.
No, it's like the dad owns it.
Yeah, so the dad owns this, and he's like, all right, go start an area in this place that doesn't have anything. We've had several different managers that have completely failed, and like I appreciate that the whole time it's like they're kind of looking at him like or at least the story, and he's kind of feeling like he's super self-interested, and you don't really totally think that he's on the up and up or really sincere. But at the same time, and I'm like, honey, in a capitalist situation, if I win, everybody wins. Because the only way I can win is by helping somebody else, by serving somebody else and filling the need in somebody else's life. Because I can't get money unless I convince you that this is a thing that you need, or I show you how I can help you and I save you time, energy, or your own money.
Or you can trick an entire town into thinking that they need the postal service.
Right.
That is one way to do it.
Well, the kids though, that was what was funny too. Is like, how do these kids have all this money?
I mean, it's only a penny.
Still.
Allowances? Come on. Like one penny and a toy?
Hey, this one act, that he set up encouraged a lot of good things, not only in the good things that the kids were doing, but I'm sure it got them to actually get their act together, to do their chores so they could get paid their allowance, so their parents were happier. I mean, you could see from the transition.
They were all self-interested, which led to better things for everyone.
So that's the moral of the story, kids.
Yes.
Be self-interested.
In the acts of serving others, yes.
Yes, of course.
As long as I'm cool.
They have this town that's very fractured. And so, what I actually really loved at the very beginning was that the character, Jesper, right? Is that his name?
Yeah, Jesper.
He's, within 5 minutes, boom, 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 we are in the action and we know who this character is, what motivates him. And now he's set on this path literally within the first 5 minutes, he's going to this city. And I love that. I thought they didn't waste any time. It wasn't slow going. And from the very first 5 minutes, I was invested in where this was going, and he, being a self-interested character, we see that he is basically being punished and he's doing this for his own good, which is fine. But I liked that it moved it quickly. And then we see these subplots arise with different characters. So we see that he goes to this town. I loved how dark and gray it was. It just showed that there was no life to this town whatsoever. And they have this sort of Romeo and Juliet feud going on between the two families. And then, we meet different characters along the way, such as Klaus and the teacher, and we see what has motivated each one of them. And it really sets the stage for the rest of the film. And I just thought that the storytelling and just the way the narrative was set up was so well done. Props to that.
Yeah, really great pacing on the story too, because you really followed it line by line, and then it showed you line by line how this, the legend of Santa Claus starts and keeps going. So I appreciated that.
I never once felt like I had to hit the fast forward button or the
Yes.
rewind,
Yes.
go back a little bit in order to catch something, which is saying something these days in the era where you can just skip ahead or come
Yes.
back on something. I think the moment of storytelling to me that just blew me away as far as pacing and what it did for it too was the flawless execution on how they got that letter from that kid who's like barricaded up in the top of his house to Klaus, and how that started everything from there. Because that moment didn't feel like an inciting incident for the
Right.
story. It just felt like it's just Jesper trying to convince this kid
Right.
that, oh yeah, you should absolutely mail something. Here's exactly how to do it. And exactly what happens is exactly what's needed
Yeah.
to start the story off. It's perfect.
Yeah. It doesn't seem forced or shoehorned or contrived. Like everything feels very natural.
Yeah, so then we get to meet Klaus himself, and he is not, you think Santa Claus, you just kind of always assume that he was just this guy who loved kids and, just wanted to make kids happy. But in a way, that is always what he wanted to do. When we learn the backstory later, it really paints the picture of what the dreams he had for he and his wife. However, that didn't happen. And so when we're introduced to him, he's just kind of this lonely woodcutter who's just a kind of a recluse and happens to have a barn full of toys. And we see how he is not really into this at the very beginning, but like just little changes and little shifts along the way set them on the path ultimately to where they end up. And I thought it was really fantastic. And I really liked him. I thought because he was a bit guarded at the very beginning, he didn't speak at all, essentially. There were grunts. And then eventually we get to know more of him and his personality. It made him a little intriguing. And because we knew, maybe if you had gone into this film, you didn't know he was supposed to be Santa Claus, but I don't know how you couldn't. So you kind of always know, like, well, how is this guy who's kind of grumpy, how does he end up being Santa Claus? And so it really creates that
possible axe murderer.
Yes, yeah. I like the way that they set that up.
Yeah, there's a silent strength that comes off their design from Klaus. Even without him saying a word, it's just like he's this immovable character that has a lot of character to him. I felt like Klaus's design was the one that they probably spent their most time on, because that is a fine line on portraying a lot from a character without saying a word and barely moving.
Mm-hmm.
It's really impressive what they did.
Every scene and every shot of this movie felt like I was reading a Disney Golden Book.
Oh,
like
those are good
it
ones.
was so charming. And every picture, just the lines, like the character design, the art design, the environment layouts, everything about it, I was sucked in just watching it. And they just did a fantastic job.
So with Jesper, we've seen this before, where there's this narrative where the main character is forced into a situation and they have to go and do something because they need to get out. It's not because they love the people, it's not because they love the job, it's because like this is a means to an end. I think very much of Lightning McQueen in Cars, where he goes to Radiator Springs, he's forced there, he has to get the job done. But I'm trying to think of other examples where the character's motivations are hidden from the people until there's this big reveal where it's like, as Mason would say, you lied to me, but it's not really a you lied to me moment. It's more of just a true intentions are revealed. And even though their heart has changed, the people don't believe that this person's intentions had changed and were true. I'm trying to think of other examples of where we've seen this, but
you sit on a throne of lies.
None come to mind.
I loved the kind of yin yang aspect between Klaus and Jesper in this.
Yeah.
I loved that. Klaus, again, just that silent strength character. Jesper is just this big ball of chaotic. It's not even like directed energy. He's obviously trying to figure out what the heck is going on in Smearensburg.
Yeah.
But their dynamic, I never once felt that there was an annoying character, that one person's carrying all the weight. Like just the dynamic of the two of them was flawless. And you had mentioned earlier about, composition and lighting and everything setting up. This movie is a masterclass in layout and composition and cinematography. for animation. I mean, even things from just random hysterical moments happening in the background, like when that ship's captain is, was it Mogans, I think was his name?
The ferry boat guy.
Yeah, the ferry boat guy. He's sitting there at the bar,
Logan.
basically, and there's that one house in the background that shoots the cannon and destroys the other. It's like you don't even have to move the shot. You just have all the humor that's happening because you've composed it so brilliantly.
Yeah. It's interesting. This film really steps animation forward in a lot of ways. It's not just, it's so technically beautiful, but the story is not that great. Sometimes you have one or the other, or a few aspects. And for that reason, I was actually really surprised. It was nominated for an Academy Award and it lost to Toy Story 4. And I had not seen Klaus up until just recently. And, I was never a fan of Toy Story 4. And seeing I'm just kind of sitting here like, how?
No, I feel the same way about Toy Story 4. Listening to you guys' episode from earlier, everything that you said was 100% what I was thinking.
Yeah, a lot of people love it and think it's amazing, but
knowing that, it annoys me that Klaus didn't win the Academy Award, just because it was like, this one just had so much more charm, and the other one I feel just had more votes, and it's like,
It's a Pixar film, so obviously we're just naturally going to do it. So maybe some of the campaigning that happens behind the scenes had something to do, a lack of campaigning maybe, or Disney went crazy with it.
I'm not really sure on who votes for animation, because in every category, I know at least in the music awards, people have to pick the categories that they're going to vote in. So I can't, if I'm a gospel singer, I can't go and vote in the, R&B side. Like, so I have to have, that plus the all around vote is what I can get to. So, so you really have to be in the realm that you're in. So I think it was a little self-interested, just because of the amount of people that could be in the industry that are voting, and it's like they're probably more connected to Disney, Pixar, like, which is a shame, because if you're looking at the actual style plus just the creativity of it and the fact that it was just an altogether really great storyline, it was just, to me, it was the better film.
Do you think that it being a Christmas film took away from it winning the Academy Award at all?
I don't know. That could be something, but
just write it off as just another Christmas film.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to look at like how many Christmas films have actually been nominated for anime, since the category was created. Like, how many Christmas films have been released that have been nominated? It's like probably not that many.
I'm struggling to think of one off the top of my head.
So
maybe The Grinch, but I don't know.
I don't think that was nominated though. So
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and even or a holiday focused film, like
even a Halloween film, or Valentine's Day, whatever. I can't think of a holiday one even off the top of my head.
Leica films generally, if you're going to put some of them in a category of Halloween, you could fit some of them in there
because it's just too good, and especially what it did for animation and the style.
Mm-hmm.
It is 2D animated when I did go back and look how they did it. But what they ended up doing was that all of the things that make it look 3D, from lighting effects to everything, they basically started off in a program, and then a computer program will predict. It's an AI program. It will predict how lighting and shadows and stuff is. And it's right about 90% of the time. Nice. And they had other animators who came in and just did the finishing touches to it, which is genius.
That saves so much time.
That's awesome.
And it just, it's a style that no one's seen before. I mean, like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, it's something that is completely and totally different and advances the medium forward.
I felt like this has been around, and maybe it's just since 2015, because I haven't noticed it or I didn't think about it, but I feel like since 2015, this style on Instagram has really popped up hard.
Very much so. and I follow several of them. Some of them who directly worked on this film.
Yeah.
I did find the A113 in this movie.
Really?
There is an A113 that makes its way into this. And I
Oh,
wasn't
where is
expecting to find it. When Klaus and Jesper are flying and they spark the myth that Santa can fly, when they crash, there's a crate on the back of their sleigh that falls off, and A113's on the back of it.
Nice.
Just, random trivia for the day.
Yeah,
Just
people
drop
think
in
that
there.
is a Pixar only Easter egg, but it's like, you know what? There are a lot of other studios and people and directors who were a part of that A1113 class, that that's just an iconic part of Cal Arts. So they're like, you know what? No, I'm sticking this in my films too.
I
Why
claim it.
not?
I paid for that degree. I paid to go to that room. So here you go.
So I will start with the one thing that I thought in this film that didn't quite work out as much.
Okay.
I think I would have changed the song, the little pop song that popped in
at
there.
the end.
It came partway through to when basically they were delivering the sleigh to the Sami people.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That song that was playing, Invisible, I don't know, just whenever a pop song plays, it sometimes takes away from the timelessness.
Right.
Especially
of it.
Yeah. There's for different pop songs, especially if you're using specific synths, because a lot of producers nowadays will use different synthesizers and different sounds. And unless you're using like an orchestra, you're really not going to get that timeless feel, because and that's not entirely true, but like I feel like unless you're using like real instruments, it's real instruments are really difficult to decipher when you created a song, but because of when certain sounds and things within music production appear, trends, they pop up, and it's like, oh, you got that sync list too, okay, or, it's just like everybody kind of like follows the same kind of things, just because we're all kind of thinking, oh, that's cool, I'll do that too, and so it just kind of like perpetuates itself. So that's why pop songs, I agree, are more difficult to keep to keep as timeless, but I'm not exactly sure what I would have changed it to. I did like when he turned away from like the kids, and like it started off with this like hip hop song
The
in the back,
naughty
like,
list part.
oh yeah, the naughty list, where it's like, don't mess with the postal man, it's like I can dig this. All right, I got this.
It's perfect in that moment.
Yeah.
And that works. But it's not like the pop song was a bad song in any way, shape, or form. There's a lot of emotion to it.
I get it. No, I 100% get it. And it's not about necessarily the songwriting. It's just when a song was produced has a lot to do, especially when they're like just depending on the audio director is like looking for certain things that fit within a certain circle of trends.
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't have a problem with that song when I heard it, but listening to you, like I can definitely see how that makes the film not as timeless for sure, which, people they have their own creative directions, and they chose to do that, which if that's the worst thing at the end of the day about this film, you're doing pretty well.
And I was about to say the exact same thing. If that is the one detraction that I have on this film, this is the biggest problem I have. I mean, holy cow, that is saying something.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that moment too, because that's where he's watching. I think it's Margot. I think that's the little Sammy girl's name.
Yes.
When he's watching her on that sleigh, that's really the catalyst of the film that takes Jesper from, I don't necessarily care about sending 6,000 letters anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is the moment where it's like, I'm doing this for the selfless act of kindness, sparking another.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I was watching for it. I'm like, okay, what's the moment where he doesn't care anymore about the goal? And there's a moment prior to that where it's we're doing great on this, but you can still see that he has that, I'm trying to get back to my silk sheets moment. But that moment specifically where he's watching her, just the sheer joy that's on her face going around, that's the moment in the film where his heart changes.
I loved everything that they did as far as the different pieces of Santa's lore. I just loved how they just got tacked on here little by little by little. And it was kind of unexpected in ways, like you would think Santa's elves, it's the Sambi people essentially that work with him and become those initial helpers, or just these different myths about him having a list and the naughty list. I just love the way that they just subtly added those in. Bits and pieces at a time, and it really built this character, because if you're familiar with Santa Claus, who is not, you catch those right away and you're like, oh, okay, that's how this happens. Okay, and then that happens that way, and then it happens this way, and then you have a fully fleshed out backstory and persona for the Santa Claus, that at the very end of the film he becomes this mythical creature or person in a way, because he's gone, yet he still keeps appearing and coming every year. And I thought that ending was so touching. I definitely cried when he quote unquote died, or he left us, or wherever he went. And it was really, really touching.
Klaus's arc is like watching Up, but over a longer stretch of time.
Or like flipped, where instead of at the beginning you have Carl.
Yeah.
What's her name?
Ellie.
Yeah, it's Carl and Ellie.
Carl and Ellie at the beginning of Up, and then it's just him at the end. This was kind of
we're all just thinking about it, like, why'd you have to go there?
I mean, like, Pixar doing more in 3 minutes than some people can't do in 3 movies.
But I really loved actually when they presented his backstory, and we see the kind of the tragedy that they just wanted this family, and they wanted a big family, and so they were preparing for the family, and they just kept building toys, and it's going to be so amazing and fun. And then the years go by and nothing happens, and and he's getting older and she's getting older, and then eventually she gets sick. You always know what's coming when they say, and she got sick.
But how they did that moment caught me, because that was a moment that I actually teared up, and it takes a lot for me. But for whatever reason, that hit the right keys on the keyboard for hitting that moment of like, I can't imagine that being without my little 1-year-old right now, being without my wife, and in that situation, I'm just like, I can't take this. Okay, sorry.
And I love that everyone kind of got what they wanted, but in unexpected different ways. Klaus wanted this family, and he wanted just something to bring children happiness. And he didn't get that in the traditional way, but by becoming the Santa Claus figure, he brought so much joy and happiness, not only to his town and to the children of the town, but to the world. And sometimes that's how life is, where we have these grand master plans and they don't work out that way, but God has another plan for us, and the path, we're still able to achieve those goals, but it's just not the traditional way that we would have done it if we would have built it ourselves. But it actually ends up being better.
It's usually better than what you could have imagined for yourself.
Yeah. And same with Jesper. I mean, this was absolutely not what he was interested in any way, shape, or form. Thinking of him getting a love interest through all of this if at the beginning of the film, he's just so selfish. He's like a Cusco type of character.
He is. He's a total Cusco.
I love that is one of my favorite animated films, is The Emperor's New Groove.
So good.
I could sit here and quote that all day. Speaking of humor, if we do have time for it.
Oh, we have time.
Did you guys have any moments specifically that made you laugh in this one?
I mean, the ferry boat guy, he always had something funny going on around him. Different parts. Oh, the magical leaves. And I recognized that was the spirit of the mother, or the
and that made you laugh.
But it was just funny because it was like, it's Pocahontas, the magical leaves. Like, it's like this force of magical leaves just jumps from movie to movie, and so that makes me laugh. And then also how all of the Ellingbo, the brunette side, it's like their whole thing is like never trust a ginger. Like, they're just, everyone is just like red hair over here and brunettes over here, and never cross
pollinate.
That's actually the word that I was going to use. I'm like, I don't think that's a good. I don't know.
But that's so funny. It's like you think about it. I'm like, it's it's not that big of an island. How much? I can only think of like how much like inbreeding is happening on this.
Are we going there? We're going there. Okay, we're going there.
I go all over here. This is the podcast that asks the tough questions. Okay.
I love it. There were two moments in this film that had me almost crying from laughing. And one of which was when that little girl stabs the snowman while looking at Jesper with her big beady eyes. I was crying. And the other one was the head of the I think it's the Crumbs, the not the gingers, the brunettes,
The Ellingbo.
where they got the team up, and he asked like, okay, so there's one, I can't remember her line exactly, but she's referencing Jesper, and the Ellingbo guy goes, who? And she turns to him and goes, how have we never defeated you?
That one, yeah.
So good.
The fact that you can start and end a war with a bell is great.
Who has a battle bell?
Ring the bell.
I love that this film, it really hit a lot of different points. It was funny, it was serious, it was everything in between, I guess you would say. But it really hit all of those elements that you want in an animated film, and you just want in a film in general. It had great character arcs, great character development, beautiful animation, beautiful, art direction, all of that. And, I don't know if we talked about this, but I really loved just the progression of the film artistically, and I guess visually is where it's very dark and gray, and he's like, oh, you should see it in the springtime or whatever. It was kind of a funny moment. And then you kind of expect like, oh, it's going to be like this forever, but it really reflects the mood of the town and how they're so somber, and hate basically is in their heart. And over time, the colors start getting richer and richer and richer and more developed. And then at the very end, he's wearing red. He's like, yeah, I know it's a lot of red, and everything is just colorful and bright and vibrant. And I just loved that. Again, it's just these subtle shifts that happen over time. What's happening on the plot is also being conveyed visually.
Yeah, the color scripting, I
Mhm.
think that's the technical term.
Thank you very much.
The color
I need
scripting
that.
in it is just gorgeous. How it progresses from one thing to the next, just like you said, without you even really noticing it, which is the sign of true mastery
Right.
over something.
It reminds me of in Cinderella, when Cinderella's her mom's dress, when the stepsisters are ripping that dress off, every new scene that they switch gets redder and redder and redder and redder. It's just
Yeah.
like a very subtle thing that's happening in the background that people probably have never noticed before, but it helps to set the tone. And color and lighting. Yeah, color and lighting is so important in animated in any film. They did a really, really great job on this.
Actually, I don't think I even noticed that moment from Cinderella. I'm going to have to go back and watch it now.
Yeah, it's really great.
Thank you, Disney Plus.
Can do it right now.
Let's go.
All right. So any last thoughts before we give our review, final rating?
I'm usually fairly picky when it comes to animated content. I'll usually, enjoy something, but there's some element that doesn't work or whatever. It's so rare for me to go into a film and just on first watch through that nearly every element works on just a master level. And I really don't say that lightly in the least. So I'm happy that this movie is one that is pushing 2D back into the forefront, into people's conversations and topics. I'm glad Netflix is putting their money where their mouth is, and we're starting to see a resurgence of this. I'm always a fan of seeing animation go into new, bolder, and great storytelling places, and this film is absolutely a pioneer for it.
So what would you rate it?
I would give that a solid 5 out of 5.
Ooh, nice.
And I don't give that to every film. I say that confidently though.
I don't have anything that I would say is a real negative for this film. Every bit of the art direction, the characters were well developed and well defined from the beginning, and I don't feel like it's ever slowed down. And all of the things that are just key to keeping your intent to finish high, and also just sheer enjoyment of it were just really high as well. So I mean, I have no reason to give it anything less than a 5 out of 5.
Welcome to the club, Chelsea. Welcome to the club.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you.
So this film, I saw it just a few hours ago. It was unexpectedly charming. I knew that it had these rave reviews, and I think I was planning on seeing it last year, but I just never got around to it. And I am so glad that I did see this film, and this is a film that I would want to come back to. I loved how it tells this Christmas origin story, something that we think we're so familiar with, or maybe not, but about Santa Claus, who's a very well-known character in a lot of people's lives. And it just flips it on its head, and it tells things in a very unexpected way. Just every element of this film is unexpected and different and new, and pushes what is expected, from the animation to the lighting to the storytelling to the characters. It just all blends perfectly well together for this near perfect film. I mean, since I just saw it a few hours ago, I'm super picky with my fives. I've only given a few films five stars.
Come on, the club is waiting for your invitation. Come on in.
I know, the trifecta. So I'm kind of teetering between 4.5 and 5 stars. And I can't see why I would not give this a 5-star. I left watching this film just so blown away. I think on a second or third viewing, it'd give me more time to digest it. But I loved everything from this film from the very first moments. And yeah, nothing more can be said.
It's a good club.
I also, I was just thinking at the very end of the story where he's just like sitting down and he like sets out the thing of cookies and milk for him and everything's like, and it's just like, and then one day a year, I don't know how it happens, but I get to see my friend, and I was like, oh my gosh, I just start like tearing up. I'm like, it's so good. Like,
I'm not crying. You're crying.
I got citrus acid in my eye. It really was able to hit several times of the tears. So I just, it's hard not to just be so enchanted.
How many nights do you lie awake in the darkest place?
All right, let us know what your comments are and your reviews of this film. Go to rotoscopers.com/194 and let us know there. And of course, you can tag us on Instagram and social media listening to this podcast and tag us. So that way we can share it as well. Thank you so much to Andrew for joining us for this episode of the Animation Addicts podcast. Again, this was a fantastic episode, and I just loved having you on.
Oh, well, thank you guys so much. I really did have fun. Thank you guys.
We really appreciate not only your support, but also just like your spirit. Everything about you is just like, we're buds. We get it.
Yeah. Respect.
We respect, man. Respect. So where can they find you on all, or wherever they can find you?
So like I said, I do host a podcast, Dadgum Nerds, where if you want to listen to the sweet dulcet sounds of my nasally voice, you can always go and listen to that. But I'm also on Instagram at Andrew_GFX, where you can get a little glimpse into my family, my family's life, and it's cute. I've got a big old dog who's just an absolute dork if you want to see pictures of him too.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's between those two places. That's a great place to start.
Fabulous.
So with that, until next time,
we are the
Rotoscopers. Hold on one second. My children. Oh, you shutting the door? Okay. Sorry. How? Okay, hold on. Okay, what? I'm gonna mute myself. You continue talking.
It is all good.
Yeah, it just. Okay, hold on. Okay, I'm not coming. Let me come back.
It's all. Don't worry. Completely understand.
Podcast and tag us. So that way we can share it as well. Oh my goodness. Hold on. Okay, hold on. I'm almost done. Okay. That means nothing to her. To a 2-year-old, like, come on.
I know. So you mean come back in again in just a few minutes?
You mean
Got it.
in
Okay.
2 seconds. Okay, great. I'm just going to come sit right next to you. So here we go. You've been listening to the Animation Addicts podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you want to help spread the word, be sure to share the podcast with your friends on social media. Just don't forget to tag us at Rotoscopers on Instagram and use the hashtag AnimationAddicts. For all the links and full show notes for this episode, go to rotoscopers.com/podcast. Now, if you still can't get enough for your animation fix, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and visit rotoscopers.com for more animation news, reviews, and interviews. Thanks for listening.